Okay, thank you. Yeah, good afternoon in India here. Good morning there. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So in the last presentation, I had talked about conservation of wildlife in India. So today I'll be talking about wildlife in the cities, a citizen's perspective. So introducing ourselves, we are People for Animals Wildlife Hospital and Conservation Center. So we've been here almost 2 decades in Bangalore. It's in the state of Karnataka in India. So what we do is the rescue the urban wildlife of Bangalore. So I'll be speaking today, like I said, about citizens' perspective. Sneha? Yeah, okay. So looking at the larger picture of the satellite picture, you can see so how the degradation of the natural resources has taken place, and looking at the closer picture, so how have we cut down our immunity against the pandemics? So the concrete jungle we are in. So I'll be talking about vis-a-vis the urban wildlife in these cities. Like Bangalore is an IT city, it's an urban concrete jungle. So the how does the community react? How do we react? And how does this urban wildlife live in this kind of cities? So the example of Bangalore will surely apply to major cities in the world. Now it's a question to be asked: is nature a part of the definition of community? So nature has to be a community. The community, other than friends, relatives, pets. So community in a we got to talk about nature being our community. So in the city, where does the wildlife live? So it lives in the roads, the trees, the lakes, the fields, in the drains, in the parks, in the building terraces, and in the gardens. So we'll be talking about little about what we actually do as a wildlife conservation center. So we work to preserve the city's urban wildlife. So this is our statistics. So in India, they might be mind-boggling compared to some of the. They may not be much of a, statistically important if you see in some of the rescue centers in other parts of the world, in Europe or in Manhattan. So this is the so almost of 2 decades. So we have rescued around 12,000 birds, around 10,386 reptiles, and so many mammals. So we have almost rescued now around 27,000 animals of the urban wildlife of 201 different species. So some of the rarest species we have, other than the usual, the spectacle cobra, the vipers, and the rat snakes, the black kites, the Brahmani kites, and all other different wildlife. So these are some of the rarest species we have rescued around Bangalore. So you'd be surprised to know. So almost it is 7 different types of bats. There are 389 bats, so many monitor lizards, so Egyptian vultures, pangolins. So all this found in the city. The pythons, and look at the number of the turtle, tortoise, and the terrapins. This is all due to the vanishing freshwater lakes in and around Bangalore, so being encroached. So we find so much of rescues, and the bats and the pangolins have got much limelight vis-a-vis the COVID-19. So you know what's happening, and now at least the scare has level of scare has gone down compared to the scare initially. The bats were spreading the COVID. So we were getting many calls of telling, please come and remove the bats terraces, or somebody talking about cutting down trees from the balconies, where the bats live. So now that there's a more of education, people are more educated, and there's more of understanding of COVID-19. Hopefully, these things have come down now. So at our rehabilitation and conservation center, what we do basically is, see, we work on the principle of 4 Rs here. So the rescue, the recovery, the rehabilitation, and the release. So the main part, what I call the heart, that's where we tick, is a rescue. So the main job being rescue. So we have, looking at the traffic in Bangalore. So we have around 4 two-wheelers and 2 four-wheelers. We work 24 hours with 5 helplines ringing all through, and we have a rescue batch of around 4 rescuers and a rescue coordinator, and they work in shifts, and we almost work 24 hours. So we have some volunteers all over the city. So being such a vast city, so if if it is very far away, then we ask the volunteer to come and stabilize the wildlife till we reach there. So talking basically about rescue. So rescue, if you're looking at our statistics, is a wide variety of animals. So let's talk about this kite versus kite. So the black kites, the Brahmani kites. So especially during the pandemic, there's been a lot of kite flying. The children, the schools being closed, the IT officials, the IT professionals being at home. So they've been flying a lot of kites. So the kite versus the kite. So there's a rampant use of Chinese manja, which doesn't break easily. So after the kite has been cut, and this manja gets stuck in the trees, and you can find this. So the rescues of this kite, the manja entangled kites, black kites, increased phenomenally during the COVID. Previously, we used to get to 1 or 2 cases per day, and it has increased to about 8 to 10 cases, and most of them at a very vast height. So around 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, the tall trees. So even with our van and our specialized equipment, we can't reach such heights. Then we call in the fire department to help us, and then we rescue the animals. So many a time the black kite, due to panic, has got so badly entangled that many a time the feather, the wing has broken into many pieces, by the time we are able to rescue it. So we get it back here, we stabilize the black kite, and we are quite specialized in this. We do intramedullary pinning also, to set right the fracture, and use surgical wires and all to set right. So, but many a time we are unable to do much, since the bone pieces have been lost in the site. So there's nothing we can do to regrow the bones. And then the black kite gets ankylosed, she can't fly. So she can just jump around in the ground. So then we keep them, we put them into a category of lifetime care. So it stays with us. So we don't release any animal which is unable to look after, defend itself in the wild. It stays with us for life. So this snakes coming into apartments. You see the widespread of Bangalore, the unplanned urbanization, where the habitats of the snakes have been destroyed. So many people tell us, "Ki sir, the snake has come into our apartment," but it's actually the human beings we have gone into their habitats. So we get many calls um, of this spectacled cobras and other types of snakes. This is one of our rescuers. So we analyze all the animals, the wildlife we rescue from, especially from the area, looking at the seasonal and the type and the cause. so that it helps us function much better in future. So where we can we have a very strong
Hello, Navas. Can you hear us?
the okay, how this can be prevented.
Okay.
The cause of the conflict. So if you look at the spectacle cobra, so look at the spectacle cobra. So the main reason is being displacement. So the being the man animal conflict, their habitat being destroyed. We are taking over all their habitat. New apartments have been coming in. So we have been destroying the fields, the dwelling places. So the main reason being displaced. So that's why they come in looking into their areas. Like I said, they say ki it has come into my apartment, but actually the snake is at his uh, in his habitat. We have encroached into them. So we get lots of cases with this, especially the snakes being in Bangalore. We have there's a rich population of snakes all around. So including the four poisonous ones and the huge number of non-poisonous ones. So we have, and the way, like I said, the unplanned urbanization and the indiscriminate use of JCBs and the bulldozers to clear the areas, we get many cases of their spine being fractured. So a spine fracture snake takes us a long time, almost 8 to 9 months to rehabilitate. So first we have to pinpoint the fracture. We have to set right the fracture, and that takes about 2 to 3 months. And then the portion below the fracture gets paralyzed. So the nerve endings and the sensation being having gone. So it's a long process of then we start a rehabilitation of each snake. So with physiotherapy, hot water baths, ultraviolet rays, UV rays, and then we have started this for the first time about some months ago. The acupuncture in snakes. So this has really helped us. Acupuncture. Before we started this therapy, I went on all the material available in the world. The acupuncture in snakes is not being done anywhere in the world. So we have started this. So and it has really benefited we have been able to cut down the rehabilitation period to almost 25 to 30% compared to what we were doing before. So we use this combination of physio laser being most advanced and the Chinese traditional veterinary medicine or acupuncture. We've been using this both combination to rehabilitate them better, and we've been able to cut down the rehabilitation period to almost 2 to 3 months. And then the white-cheeked barbet. So again, so mostly by this pruning of trees, by this electrical department, and cutting down of trees due to new apartments coming in. So they often, and you can see a majority of the portion is also injury, having displaced from the nest, and starvation also. And the short-nosed fruit bat. So you can make out, so the majority is on the human-induced injury. Um, so which has more so increased in the initial panic situation of the um, COVID-19. So talking about the gray slender loris, an amazing mammal, helpless one. So it was previously found in the tall tree lines spreading over almost 4 states from Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. So now the tall tree line has disappeared. So we are left. So we have left, like in Bangalore, very little pockets where the tall tree lines stay. Like in Bangalore, the Indian Institute of Science. So there's a GKVK campus and there's a Bangalore Veterinary College. So the migration is stopped. So there's a lot of inbreeding in them now. So and there is a steady declining habitat in the slender loris. So we used to get many cases of black magic before, which fortunately has stopped now. So basically we get cases of dehydration or injury or basically electrocution. So we almost rescued about 65 to 70 of them. So I'm sure there must be many more which are not reported to us. So we are shortly going to start a campaign to save their habitats. We're telling save the slender lorries, save their habitats, and save Bangalore. So the next portion comes to recovery, where the medical intervention, the intensive care, the veterinarians, and the rehabilitators. So this is one thing we do, which we almost extensively do here. This is known as implantation, feathers imping. So many a time these birds, especially the black-kites, the owls, the barbets, the rose-ringed parakeets, so due to conflict or due to being entangled into the electrical wires or into the manja, they lose their feathers. So we have a feather bank. So here, and we also correspond with other rehabilitation centers, and we exchange feathers. So we are able to put a feather which has fallen down naturally and implant it with high density glue. So this works amazingly. A bird which will take about 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months to remold, we almost make it, I mean, we put it on road overnight with this implantation. So this plays a very important role, and we do extensively here. Last year, we almost had 400 black kites being rescued due to the bad summer. So this year, hopefully the climate was good, and we were called in to rescue only 200 of them. So many of them, they need this implanting. So we have a limited forest in the outskirts of Bangalore, Turahalli, which is just adjacent to us. So we have around 300 to 400 spotted deers there. So last year we had a huge, like I said, there was summer was quite severe. So we had a huge issues of the water sources having dried up in Turahalli forest, and this spotted deer were living their habitat and coming out of the jungle in the evenings looking for water outside, and they were getting attacked by the feral dogs and were involved in many vehicular accidents. So we get many of these cases. We work in close tandem with the Karnataka Forest Department. We rescue them, we treat them, and we put them back. So this is what I was telling about how we did Operation Quench Thirst last year, saving the Turahalli wildlife. So since the water sources are dried up, we took, with the permission of the forest department, we took water tankers late in the evenings and filled up this water sources. So to a large extent. So this is where the community was involved. So we could get other NGOs. So many people chipped in for the economic part of it, because the water tankers were quite costly. So we took the community, the NGOs were involved. So as a community, we could save them. So the day we started filling up these water sources, so the migration of these black spotted deer dramatically dropped out of the jungle. So this tortoise, terrapins, and tortoise. So this is due to the vanishing lakes in Bangalore. So we get many cases of this being run over by the two-wheelers and the shells being cracked. So you could see a picture previously of we are fixing titanium plates on them to cure them. So, and this is the photograph of you could see the acupuncture on a fracture site of a cobra being done, and different pictures of X-rays and UV light. And then the third portion, which comes the rehabilitation. So after the recovery, so we have to rehabilitate to how the young ones who have been displaced. So we have an intensive system of rehabilitation with rehabilitators, vets working. And like I said, we have a child ecology education program where we almost have addressed 5 lakh students so far of 5,000 schools. And we have executives, we have given them small projectors. They go to the schools and give presentation. And these schools visit us in batches. So we take them around the shelter, and with a protected glass, we show them how the feeding of the young one is done, how a squirrel is being fed, how a young bird has to be looked after, and how a bat is being fed, and how a baby macaque is being fed. So all this has a great impact on the psychology of the child. So all these children who come and visit us, it gets imprinted in them when they show them around. I'm sure none of them is going to hurt any animal after when we show them the live feeding. So the feeding behavior, so like the night heron and the sunbirds. So look at we teach them, we teach them and encourage them to hunt before we release them back, because they have to survive on the world. So look at the innovative um, concept rehabilitators. Through a syringe, we have um, camouflage with the flower for the sunbird to drink. This is how we rehabilitate and train them before they are being released. So enriching them, so into the familiar habitat, process of rehabilitation. So the day of the jackal. So we saw some months ago, we had this from the outskirts of Bangalore. We had a report. So somebody had taken up a small pup, thinking it was a dog pup. So they had raised it, and when it grew up, they realized it was a jackal. So then this was informed to us, and then we rescued the jackal, and it had lost all its wild instincts. So we had to rehabilitate it, to create environment inside our conservation center, like you find in the wild. So we rehabilitated it for a couple of months, and then this is the volunteer program, and our veterinarian um, doing rehabilitation. So we are a family. So we have this rehabilitation cage built on the world standards, where we can see the trees inside, the natural looking. So we involved, this again is a concept of the community. We had involved a prominent apartment builder. So we convinced them, say, what destruction the apartments are doing and how we can contribute to it. So we agreed to um, design this world-class rehabilitation enclosure for the macaques. So it cost quite some money. So he did it himself with his team, and by this we are able to rehabilitate the orphaned baby macaques much faster. So they come to us. So for 2-3 months we have to feed them milk, the baby macaques, every 2 hours or something. So these macaques start thinking the veterinarians and the rehabilitators are the mothers. Then the slow distancing starts of we form a group of them, these orphaned macaques, and slowly segregate them away and start feeding them fruits, vegetables, and they finally go into this rehabilitation cage where they stay there. The enrichment is done as in the jungle, and the last 1 or 2 months we feed them what they're going to get in the jungle. So they move. There are 2 enclosures here. They move from one to another every day, every alternate day, and finally we trap them in between this cage here, and we transport them. And when they are ready, and release them back into the jungle. Then the most satisfying thing which gives a lot of happiness and joy is finally to release it back into the wild or into nature. So we make sure there's a reduced man-human conflict, and the territory planning, like the macaques and all. We keep in close liaison with the forest department to know the density of population in a particular area, in a particular forest, before we release them. So this is a pelican, grey pelican we released some time ago. It was found bang in the center of Bangalore. This is me releasing it in a lake in Alsore in Bangalore. So happy to be free. You can see all the construction all around. So the PFA heroes. So all these children who give us information um, from Bangalore, from the wide city, each nook and corner, the students, the informers. So here you find the fire department involved with us. This is Mr. Koshi, one of the advisors, a very ardent animal lover. So he had rescued this gray pelican, which I released. So again, was found in the heart of the city. So all these people who give us information about the rescue, about the urban wildlife which needs rescue, are our heroes. We are them, so we call them the PFA heroes. So let's come in the broader aspect now. Other than that, the value of the wildlife and the health of a city. So how does a wildlife help? I mean, I'm talking about the urban wildlife. So the pollination and plants. So they help in almost 90% of the plants have been, the pollination has been done by this, the birds, the squirrels, and the different wildlife. So the insects and the birds, so the numerous species. So they help in dispersal of the seeds and in the pollination. So the flower pollination, which needs the fruit, seed dispersal, and finally to the plants, shrubs, the parks, in the lakes, neighborhood, and the jungle which has come up, and again with that, which gives home to wildlife, and it's a cycle. So again, this which helps the air quality, the temperature control, the soil fertility, the food and the health of the city. So all these are responsible for 90% of our trees and 75% of the food crops. And the wetlands, the lakes, the ponds, the rivers. The natural balance of our water bodies. And coming to the health and the disease and the pest control. So they play a very important role in the disease and pest control. So the hard-working cleaners of our garbage. So in any city, you take in India and others, so we give much importance to the municipality or the garbage cleaners. And what about this eco cleaners? The jungle crow, the house crow, and the black kites. So they all clean the city, the garbage, the organic waste is cleaned by them. So they also play a very important role in cleaning the city of its garbage. They are the eco warriors. So natural pest controllers, the normal house lizard. So it eats so many mosquitoes. The barn owls, it eats around 300 rodents per year. Imagine the snakes; they also equal number, almost one rodent per day. So imagine if they weren't there, the natural pest controllers. They control so many diseases, these flies, insects, like like plaque, dengue. So they are the natural controllers of the pest controllers, and thereby contributing a great to prevention of the zoonotic diseases like the snake. So he catches especially the mice which are affected by leptospirosis. Their speed becomes slow, and these are the guys get them the first. So thereby they are preventing the transmissible diseases from from these animals to human beings. So you know about this famous story of the COVID-19, the wet markets. What happened when the stress levels increase? So you know about that. So look at the way they do the insect vectors and the pest controllers, and they control the decomposing organic waste in 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 uh, in a city or town or anywhere. So they all of them have a specific role to play in nature. So when we analyze our rescues, so 65%, almost 71 species were of the pest or the disease, the scavenger species. So majority of being the snakes and the black kites, and only 4% were of the wetlands, and 26%, 35 species of the pollinators. Now we feel the rules of the conservation need to be rewritten as far as the urban context is concerned. So I mean, there's a lot of work on that, and a lot of talk about conservation in the wilderness. What about the conservation of the wildlife in the city? So, like I said, we go through the basic rescues and the reasons for rescues of different species. So you can see the spectacle cobra basically happens the maximum rescues during the hatching season, so during the monsoons, and the bonnet macaques. So this really helps us to know the reasons why this happens. So basically, the birds during the nesting season. So we have a pattern of them. So the November, December, it's basically the owls. So in October, it's the medium-sized birds. Monsoon, it is um, the snakes. So all this wildlife have been, I mean, they have a huge ability to adapt to different habitats, like some of the previous speakers also I heard talking about. So the curiosity, so you just keep something in your balcony, so the many birds are very curious to come, and they're so curious, the exploration, the interaction with the environment. So the reproduction behavior, so that is also changed due to the city, due to lights and the sounds. You see, you can't, the mating calls are muted, so they can't hear the male and the female can't hear the each mating calls. So this also greatly affects the feeding behavior and coexistence, the fear of other humans and other animals. So, what are our choices? Would you like to be this or that, the concrete jungle or this? So, our choices are clear. You got to make clear choices. So, the community, you got to work as a community and the biodiversity. So, we got to protect habitats, teach our children. So, like I said, we have a very interactive child ecology education program here, because we have found that they are the ambassadors, the children, they are the ambassadors of ambassadors and saviors of environment in the future. So if we can put this into the mind, that's what we've been doing. And after our sensitization program here, when the children go home, we get many calls from the parents telling, sir, my child, my boy or a girl has really changed. So he argues us to take only cloth bags and to shun plastics. And he's a change guy. He puts off the light. He tries to conserve water. He educates us. And this is the kind of, I mean, this is the kind of change we're looking for. So let the animals be. So don't harm them. Don't disturb them. They also have a right. And like I said, like we said, each one is contributing. So let them be. So include them in addition. So you make there's something, some change is going to happen. You make an apartment or a house. Include the trees there. Include think about the animals. What are you going to do? How are they going to be displaced? So take all this into addition. They all are part of your community. So you have to take them. So they got to be a part of you rather than just ignoring about them. So all this makes a community. It's a biodiversity. It's a coexistence. So tell people, educate them. So trimming, you see what all harms trimming of a tree affects. So the nest having fallen down affects the plants, the pollination, fumigation, and night lights disturbs the biodiversity and their habitats. So you should try and keep the feral animals away. So this is a cat trying to poach on a squirrels, and encourage summer baths and feeders during hot seasons, and try to, so like the simple thing like cutting the you must have seen this in many places, the milk packet where people cut off the tip and it falls somewhere, and it's an environmental hazard. So just making a this one so it stays and gets disposed of with the other part of the packet really helps. So smaller plastics. So plastics, as you know, plays havocs. So we found kgs of plastics and domestic animals, cows we operate, and the havoc they cause us. So straw has been found in sea turtle miles deep into the Indonesian Ocean. So all this they play havoc. So what do we need in a city? More trees, more lakes, so unclaimed spaces. So we can hear the natural sounds of the wildlife. So one of the best places to save the wildlife is just not in the wilderness. It is there of land and sea, but in the cities also. Thank you. Hello?
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Sharif, for your wonderful presentation on the great efforts that you and your team are making in protecting wildlife in the Bangalore area. We'd like to open the floor to any questions that the audience may have for Dr. Sharif. Okay, there is one question on the chat from Denitz. Would you consider stray dogs as a significant part of Indian wildlife?
Stray dogs? No. So stray dogs actually, if you take the Indian perspective of stray dogs, I mean, with the animal rights activists being very active now, so there's a huge jump in their population, which is actually playing. They don't come under the category of wildlife at all, nor does it come under the category of the Indian wildlife, these domestic dogs. So, but with the animal birth control program being not very well implemented in many places in the country, there's been a phenomenal explosion of these dogs, and many of them have become feral dogs. So, like the Turali forest I was talking about. So we have had many instances of this dogs, feral dogs chasing the spotted deers and trying to attack them. And so we had to liaise with the forest department and try to bring in strict rules of patrolling and control of these dogs with the corporation. So they are playing sort of a havoc with the environment to a certain extent. So we need to implement the cats and the dogs. The animal birth control needs to be implemented in a systematic manner, so in which their population is being controlled. So this will really help the community as such, and also the wildlife.
Thank you very much for that answer, Dr. Sharif. We've got one more question in the Q&A from Andre. Dr. Sharif, I'm surprised that you appreciate birds for cleaning the waste in cities, as this waste can cause severe injuries to the birds. Is there any chance to improve the waste management in India to prevent such waste ending up on streets or even in rivers in the first place?
Yeah, we have become very conscious now in Indians, and so many years ago there used to be no segregation of the garbage. Now, so in many cities, towns, there is a strict garbage segregation program in place in many of the apartments, where we segregate the organic, inorganic, the plastics, the specific days, and it is very much organized now. So compared to, and we are improving in a waste management, waste treatment, and waste disposal, and we're using new technologies in the country now, and hopefully this will be, we will be improving the results much better. So what we want to emphasize, the role of these wildlife also as eco warriors in cleaning the environment. So we got to recognize them also, important role they are playing in this, in in garbage disposal.
That's definitely good to hear. We have one more question from Dr. Mahesh Sanskiri. Is there a plan to start such a hospital like the hospital that you guys have in Bangalore? Is there a plan to start such a hospital in Mumbai?
Yeah, there is a plan by the Tata Sons to start a pet clinic, pet hospital, and a wildlife hospital there. So actually, we
We still
need
want that.
this kind of conservation centers and hospitals. I mean, in almost every town in India, and every city needs it. So looking at the, so many people don't consider crow as a wildlife, so they think only snake is a wildlife, so they don't consider the black cat as a wildlife. So we need to have this kind of centers all over the cities and towns in India. So this is a much requirement. So Mumbai, there's one being constructed, like I said, by the Tata and Sons. So hopefully, I think by the somewhere early or the mid next year, so it will be working for the dogs and the pets and for the wildlife.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation, Dr. Sharif.